Hello, agents, and welcome to your final module of training in the art of sexpionage. If you've made it this far, I am so excited and thrilled that you have made it through all of your trainings and all of your missions. You are committed, and now it's time to reap the benefits of your commitment. I want to start by taking a trip back into what we've learned throughout training in the art of sexpionage. And then I'll give you some final thoughts and instruction on how to complete your final mission, which is the 007. So let me pull up my slides and we'll get started. All right, here we go. Training in the art of sexpionage, module 9, lesson 1. The purpose of this module is to put everything we've learned into practice and complete your final mission, the 007. This is module 9, 007. Our mission agenda for this week is joining the 007 Club. Like I said, we're going to review training in the art of sexpionage, and then I'll give you some final thoughts on intimacy and your final mission. So we started way back in week 1 talking about how to show up for yourself, becoming a spy so that you can show up for your partner. We discussed differentiation, which means that we don't necessarily have to meld into one person, that it's important to develop and honor who you are and become the best version of yourself. That's what creates passion in your relationship. We talked about controlling what we can control versus what we have no control over and where to focus our attention. And then we talked about taking full responsibility for filling up our own cups so we show up to the partnership from a place of abundance rather than lack. Most importantly, I shared the 3 laws of sexpionage, which I hope by now has been burned into your brain, because if you're ever struggling, I promise if you can go back to these 3 simple laws, that it will give you more clarity and perspective on how you can show up in your relationship. So remember, number 1, the only thing I have 100% control over in any given situation is myself. Number 2, I'm 100% in control of the experience I'm having in any given situation. That's through the story we tell. And number 3, my partner's job is not to make me happy, but to be 100% themselves. Then we moved on to module 2, which was on writing our own story, right? What is the story we want to be remembered for? We talked about how important it was to take responsibility and ownership of the story that we are writing. We talked about rewriting our stories, keeping in mind that we can't change the circumstance, but we can always change the way we see the circumstance and experience the circumstance that we're in. And then, of course, we talked about the comparison trap and deciding that if we see others with something that we want, that we should be asking ourselves, how do we think those people feel, and how can we create those feelings in our relationship as it is? This idea of how will you be remembered? What is the love story that you're writing is always in my mind. And recently I have not been able to get this song by Rascal Flatts out because it is so important. I'll spare you my singing, but the lyrics go like this. Did you stand or did you fall? Build a bridge or build a wall? Hide your love or give it all? What did you do? What did you do? Did you make them laugh or make them cry? Did you quit or did you try? Live your dreams or let them die? What did you choose? What did you choose? When it all comes down, it ain't if, it's how they'll remember you. So as you go through your life together, what is the story you're writing? And how will those who knew you and experienced your love story remember it? Then in week 3, we talked about knowing what to look for. This quote by Wayne Dyer is so absolutely important. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. So remember to look for the good, always showing gratitude and appreciation for those things your partner does to make your life better. Releasing those unrealistic expectations that cause you so much heartache, and giving your brain good problems to solve. So remembering that if my partner's only job is to be 100% themselves, then my jobs are to look for the good in them, release any unrealistic expectations that I'm holding on to, and give my brain good problems to solve. Moving on to week 4, we talked about breaking those negative patterns of interaction so we can create our own unique and beautiful dance together. We talked about the beauty of conflict and how important conflict is to the innovation and creativity of our relationship. Without conflict, there can be no progress. So don't be afraid of conflict, but remember that we're overcoming those negative patterns of interaction, right? Once we recognize them, we can zoom out and see the game and not the ball, and then choreographing a new dance together. What I love about this picture of Meryl Davis winning the Mirror Ball trophy is that dancing wasn't new to her. She won an Olympic medal for ice dancing, right? But ballroom dancing was a new experience for her. As far as I know, she holds the highest average score of any Dancing with the Stars champion, but she had to unlearn the things she knew about ice dancing to be able to put into practice ballroom dancing. And she worked hard and with beauty and grace won that mirror ball trophy. She had to undo years and years and years of training in a specific kind of dancing to be able to come out victorious in this particular competition, which she did so beautifully. So it can be done, and the results are something to celebrate, just like this. And then in week 5, we talked about turning conflict into passion by way of creating trust and safety. We talked about building trust, we talked about the marriage code, and learning each other's love languages. My marriage code, again, is don't jump in the pool. Remember, we don't have to take on our partner's emotions in order to show them love. We can allow them to process their own emotions and be there for them when they're ready to talk. Picking up the slack. Remember that a marriage is never 50-50. There will be times when you're putting in more or your partner is putting in more. Be willing to pick up the slack and show gratitude when it's your turn, and always having each other's back, creating that us against them mentality, and sticking up for your partner in all situations, even if it means against themselves. So don't jump in the pool, pick up the slack, and have each other's back. Moving on to week 6, we talked about creating an unbreakable bond and a supportive family culture. We talked about the difference between love and desire and how it's important to cultivate both in your relationship. And then we set up our bumpers and created a shared vision. Remember that we don't have to have the same goals, the same values, and the same ideas in every season of life. But it's so important to create that shared vision. What is it that you want to see at the top of that mountain? Those things that you accomplished, overcome, and created together. The first step in getting to where you want to go is knowing what it looks like. So make sure that you have that shared vision always in the forefront so that you can course correct when you start going in the wrong direction. And then week 7, we talked about fanning the flames of desire. We dove into our sexual identities. We talked about all things desire and developing your sensuality. These aspects are so important, not only to becoming the very best versions of ourselves, but also creating a relationship that stands the test of time. The bottom line, according to the Gottmans, who have done years and years and years of research on what makes a strong and lasting marriage is that great sex is not rocket science. It's very doable, but you have to be able to talk about it and you have to make it a priority in your relationship. All of the skills we've discussed over the last several weeks should help you create an environment where you're both communicating about your needs and desires and what gives you pleasure, but also prioritizing it. That is a choice. And then in week 8, let's talk about sex and intimacy. We talked about the difference between emotional and physical intimacy. We talked about how to develop that trust in the bedroom. And of course, we talked about the big picture, which is how you show up for each other, both inside and outside the bedroom. Remember that couples who have great sex over the long term have 2 key characteristics in common. Number 1, they share a strong friendship and trust. And number 2, again, they prioritize it. This is according to Emily Nagoski, the author of Come As You Are. I promise that as you come to prioritize and value your sexual pleasure, whatever that means to you, within the bounds of a trusting, secure, and safe relationship, you will be able to, as a team, get through any struggle, knowing that that struggle will make you stronger and not tear you apart. Now, when you're ready, I'll meet you in the next lesson where I'll give you my final thoughts on intimacy and your final mission, the 007. I'll see you there.